If you're watching this, you're probably excited about Wrath of the Lich King Classic. You've heard the stories, the critical acclaim, you've heard a decade's worth of praise about this particular expansion. We've heard accolades such as the pinnacle of WoW, the best expansion ever. It all went downhill after this. This is where Activision bought them, and look how shit Blizzard became in the long run. But let me ask you a question. What even is Wrath of the Lich King? Well, of course it's a WoW expansion, but what makes this expansion so revered and so held on a pedestal compared to the other iterations of World of Warcraft? The answer is honestly really simple. It was the end of a story that had been told for well over a decade, starting for some in Warcraft 1, but for many in Warcraft 3. It was the continuation and improvement on a game design that had convinced 12 million people to sub monthly. It was the right time, the right place, and the right systems and world to suck you right into the game itself. But I will say one thing, the Wrath of the Lich King of then versus the Wrath of the Lich King of now is two completely different games. But how, you ask? Well, it's pretty simple. The experience versus the end result. First of all, there wasn't 10,000 content creators releasing videos about every aspect, nook and cranny of the game for everyone to see. There was still excitement and discovery in regards to the game itself. You didn't have content creators streaming every facet of the game, mining the very depths of content, milking it dry. Though we had way more music videos back in the day, like What Happened? Who doesn't remember the epic #1 hit single, Ulduar? You didn't have 100 discords min-maxing every class, every raid, gold farming methods, and everything else to death. Farming for gold was actually a struggle back in the day. People struggled to get gold for cold weather flying, or buying the mammoths or the Dalaran ring. Remember that girl who sold sex for gold? Yet nowadays on YouTube there'll be 100 videos titled, "The best gold farm you've ever seen, 50,000 gold per hour, no cap." Now none of that is actually a bad thing. And heck, if people enjoy it, there's no harm or foul in games being played like this in a modern setting. But it wasn't quite like that back then. There weren't any TeamSpeak 3 or Ventrilo servers with 40,000 people in them discussing how big the warrior cocks are or how good they are at the game. No offense to warriors, I also play one. You couldn't just go and browse the server Discord and then the Discords of 350 guilds, perusing and browsing to see just what was being offered, thinking to yourself, I like this guild but I don't have my role available. Let me just go and look at another 35 guild Discords and find a home as quickly as you can. Reputation actually had meaning. Servers were far smaller, the communities were more tight-knit, and when your reputation was ruined, you had to jump ship. Servers are so large now that this isn't even the case anymore. You actually had to go and scroll through forums, whisper people, try to find someone in that raid team or that guild. Look at general and trade chat to see if someone was recruiting. Now that still happens in today's day and age, but it's not as common. Logs and passes weren't even widely available, acceptable, or accessible. People used to use achievements and gear scores as the metric to define your skill and ability. People would unironically put on shittier gear with higher eye level just to get into groups. If you were bad at your class, you couldn't just go to the Fight Club Discord, check to see what the current meta is, see how to play it, get access to 1,000 guides, and see everyone so openly sharing information. Back then you had to use TankSpot and EJ. People actually discussed their classes and their abilities and how to be better, how they did it. People were more likely to take you under their wing and guide you and teach you. People used to nurture their players. Nowadays you best get your ass to fucking YouTube or Fight Club or whatever the Discord for your class is and get studying. Now, before any of you say, but YouTube was a thing, and what about the forums? Well yeah, they were a thing. And guess what? Asmongold probably has more views in his last 10 reaction videos than every single content creator's videos combined from 2008 to 2010 Wrath of the Lich King YouTube, minus music videos. Actually, someone tell me if that's the case. I'm genuinely curious now. Just because YouTube was a thing back then, and that there were way more forums, doesn't mean it was just as easy. Sure, you could type World of Warcraft Warrior Guide back in 2009, see some videos recorded at 160p, from someone whose microphone sounded like a vacuum, and potentially learn something. Heck, there were a couple of guilds that published really good guides. TankSpot was generally fairly good, and that there were guild forums that would publish high quality walkthroughs. Yet compared to today, go ahead, type WoW Classic Warrior Guide on YouTube and tell me how easy and accessible the game is and the knowledge is. PvP itself was just a completely different ballgame. Everybody was shit back then. Most people had no idea what they were doing, as even a mediocre player from today was a pretty good player back then. Wintergrasp itself was so different to the Wintergrasp that you will get to play in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. I'd cover it now, but it's a video in of itself, so I won't be doing that. Now let me just say, that Wrath of the Lich King Classic is going to be an incredible game, and it's going to be fun for so many people. It's going to be the penultimate adventure for a lot of WoW players, myself included. It's the end of an era that we'll get to relive, but we'll be reliving it through a modern lens. So let me say one thing. Even if I could go back in time and play Wrath of the Lich King how it was meant to be played back then, I wouldn't. I'd have enjoyed it back then for sure, but with the modern conveniences we have, the knowledge, the access, it would personally be incredibly painful to go back and play like it was meant to be played. It's like someone romanticizing the 1800s. Revolution, freedom, and love. Yeah, but then you also have poverty, death, and war. Do you guys remember the Oregon Trail? Just because some things back then were great doesn't mean that they'll live or work in a modern environment. Honestly though, one thing I take from back then versus now would be chat. By the love of all that is holy in this world, please remove the amount of gold cells that exist in spam and chat with no repercussions. People have always been buying gold. That itself is not new. What's new is how open and accepting everyone is of the situation. You used to get banned for being outed as a gold seller or even a buyer. Nowadays people openly admit to it and make fun of it for their personal and guild discords. Because guess what? There really aren't that many if any repercussions for the buyers anymore. But there used to be. People used to be terrified because of one thing we no longer have the luxury of having. GMs. I miss having GMs in the game who would actually do things. A looming terror to the scum and a savior to the poor and innocent. Remember the support system actually working? Writing a ticket and getting an answer? Do you guys remember that? I don't anymore. Because Blizzard knows what we want, and that's an automated answer 8 times before we get threatened with silence or else. Like Asmon getting banned for what exactly? Think about it, he got caught in an automated gold buyer seller ban wave. The biggest MMO streamer got hit with an automated ban and still took them days to unban, if he's even unbanned right now. Now imagine you did. Your account had a good run, my friend, it's time to make a new one. Some things were absolutely great back in the day compared to now. Like the Blizzard of our childhood versus the Blizzard of our adulthood. Like the uncle you revered only to find out he's not someone you should be revering. Never meet your heroes, guys. But I digress. Wrath of the Lich King was an incredible game back in the day, and it'll be an incredible game as Wrath of the Lich King Classic. Whilst it is the exact same game, with #some changes, it's going to be played in a way that no one from back then would have imagined, with a metric fuck ton of GDKPs and swiping. Jokes aside, though that's not really a joke, good luck in your Wrath of the Lich King adventures, and hopefully it ends up being the game you envisioned it being. Because Wrath of the Lich King Classic will not be about the experience, it'll be about the results and the efficiency, and in nowadays modern settings, that's how people have fun, I guess. And that's okay, because that wasn't the original feeling that the game used to be, but it is what it is now. It used to be about the experience. #some changes is not just about Wrath of the Lich King, guys. It's also the player base. It will be an absolute pleasure to play with some of you. Some of you I'll be happy to never see again, but most of you are great. If you enjoyed the content, please do like and subscribe as it helps the channel out immensely. Have a fantastic day. Ebonheart out.